Okay, we're starting again. I guess I have to use my wireless, my phone connection to do this best till I can get hold of the company and find out what's going on. Oh, wow. It's the day after Thanksgiving. Startling. It's so interesting to me, the different dynamics of experience that I'm registering, not only personally, but also actively. It seems as if the phenomenon of reality is edging its way into a whole new perspective. And there's so many new registers. One of my projects here is to make sure that I how to make Facebook Live work. But for now, we're stuck with what I'm capable of. But the point I want to make is there's some really, in all the years that I've worked, one of my key interest is establishing new registers within which new realities can become available to us. Hi, everybody. And it's really been interesting, particularly the last, thank you for hanging with me. Buen dia. It's been particularly interesting being on the road. And if you'll just bear with me, I may get internet again. I'm not quite sure. I'm having trouble this morning. So let me know if it's too disturbing. And we have a big windstorm going on. I'm going to try to go change. I'll be right back. It'll be a pause. Okay. There we go. Let's see how it goes. I'm just going to repeat myself because I actually don't know this conversation. I think it's really important to get into this conversation. That's why I'm going for it. One of the things I notice a conversation or assess an experience according to what they've held that experience to be before. And what I've been observing is that that experience isn't real. And I don't think I'm alone in this. I think that there is a definite two-world phenomenon going on. And what makes it difficult is that the calibration of the reality that is forming doesn't have word language. So it's just easy to jump to what one is how one is commonly phrased things, how one has said something is. And I think it's going to be jarring for a while. I really think it's going to be jarring. But we can tell more acutely that what we're experiencing and what we're communicating from is not being the manner we're communicating it. But human beings have been through this forever. It's not like they haven't been in these times. And slowly but surely, the perception begins to change, starts to shift. So I'm not quite sure why it's doing what it's doing, but I'll just keep pausing and making sure that I finish my sentence when it clicks back on. Being specific in what we're saying and being specific in what and we just have to learn as we go. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up, and and mention, because it has been in personal conversations. It's been in. So we're noticing that we have new registers, whether we want them or not. We're beginning to register and beginning to interact from a different template, I would say, of reality, and it carries. So exactness would be the name of the game. Think before you speak, know exactly what you're asking about, know exactly what your intent is, which is not easy either. We have a social, interactive relationship that is casual, and we've accepted it as the norm. So when it ceases to be the norm, we're jarred. And I'm giving an example. Last night, someone said, "Let me get you a cutting board." And I said, "I don't want a cutting board for the cheese." And the person said, "Well, I need the cutting board," which had nothing to do with the question that had been asked me. This is a prime example. And everybody's doing it. It's not unique to the person. Everybody's doing it. And it's this amazing phenomenon. It's really amazing because the personal I has a strong hold on the anatomy of our perception. So we actually don't listen to another person very well. We don't actually listen to each other very well. And I think it's just fine to say, is this what you want? Is this what you meant? Would you like? Because we're jarred and we're moving through something that I know it's hard to perceive what I'm about to say, but it has a vertical alignment. It's like, in this moment, this is what is happening. In this moment, this is what is happening. And often I'll be privileged to things, or I'm sensitive to things before other people are registering it or are able to sustain and maintain it for themselves. But at least if I say it ahead of time, people can realize that if they're caught in jarring conversations where they feel misunderstood or they feel not understood, that it's just a matter of make sure you're understood. It's just that simple. Make sure you're understood. And just stop the person until you're sure they heard what you said, and be as gentle as it can. But remember, this is the thing. We're in an evolutionary moment where the actual template of I is actually shifting. Mark my words, if you save this video and you listen to it literally December 1st, a year from now, you will laugh. It will be so obvious and will be so noticeable. It will be so real. I promise. I've been here a lot in my life. I've been, as a sensitive and as an empath and as a psychic, I can feel the shift in the winds like a sailor in a boat where other people do not know wind. And I just want to say it's exciting because, first of all, the personal offended I is offended because it doesn't know itself. I know that sounds strange. It sounds like the personally offended I feels others don't know it. But the truth is it doesn't know itself. Because if it did know itself, it'd say, "I'm sorry, let me be clear. This is what I need and this is what I don't need." But I want you to really take this on as an observation, and take it on as an observation without knowing how to correct it. This is really, really important because we have never known ourselves as our own I in such a manner that we can say, "This is me. I don't need a cutting board. I'm clear I don't need a cutting board when I'm cutting cheese." I know it's so infinitesimal, but it's so also significant, because if we don't take this on, and if we don't, just a few of us consider it, then we're going to be personally offended, and we're going to be trying to protect and defend ourselves, not even knowing the self we're protecting. We're in the automaticity of it now. It's just going to go that way. But if we can think it through, and I don't know the key phrases yet. I'm working it through as I go, because when I hit those new threads of reality, when I hit new patterning, when I realize that old patterning is becoming obsolete, I'm just as jarred as everybody else. I'm just as odd and strange as everybody else. In fact, this is my new home. I had a complete meltdown a few days ago, a week ago, maybe, I can't remember, somewhere in time recently, because I couldn't, the world was going one way and I was not part of where the world was going. You know, my items were going places I wasn't aware they were going. Things were happening that I wasn't aware of. And I felt like lost in a river that I had no paddle. And it was very sensory disturbing. And I think that we'll experience more of this. I think this is a trend. And I have been through these trends before. I've been through them after the Vietnam War, and then in 1979 there was a whole new trend of sensitivity that started up for people. Remember that, you know, the thing you say about I go in that room and it feels awful, or I can't stand being at work, or at that grocery store. Well, that didn't happen in the years before 1979. I know, shocking, yes. People didn't talk like that. Or maybe leading up to 1979. But for the most part, it was a new sensitivity. Oh my God, I'm affected by my surroundings. That's a very new sensitivity. Careful, please. It's a very new sensitivity. So we have another sensitivity, and it's going to require you knowing who you are in the matter and what you want. I know. It's like no quarter. It's going to be so irritating. It just is. But it's also evolutionarily exciting, because we'll be pretty sure, and the part that the social challenge of not wanting to offend another and yet being offended is part of the weirdness of our culture right now. It's part of the real weirdness of our culture. And it's even weirder than I'm saying. I'm not even telling you half of it. I'm only languaging what I can language because of my present experience. Was it cold? Is it so cold? So I have a therapy dog that is also my daughter's dog, but he's a great therapy dog, and he might jump up beside me. You want to jump up and meet everybody? Come on now. Oh. So, are you up? Okay. Are you around? Okay.
Show the spot.
So,
The famous spot.
this is my new therapy dog. Would you like to let people see you? Are you going to let people see you? We'll see what he does. He's enamored right now with his walker. So we'll see how it goes.
Water.
But the point is that we're in a time where we are being shaped by conditions of reality that we are not yet aware of, that have two very specific dynamics, and that's the point. One is to know to thine own self be true, which is going to be a communication phenomenon. I mean a talking phenomenon. I don't mean an internal awareness phenomenon. I mean a talking phenomenon. So I want you to know it's good news. It's everything starts to feel prickly and exhausting and nervous making and has a certain check him, make sure he's not going after the shoes. No, don't jar the table. And so it has a very specific contour to it that I'm working on getting across. And of course, the obvious challenge with that will be, well, who am I actually in the manner? You know, what was I really saying? What does really matter to me about this moment? Remember, we moved into be here now time. So it isn't like having an opinion. Here's this other one. So here's the other one that makes it just crappy. Here's the other thing is that you know how you have philosophies and you have ideas about things, and you contour your life about those ideas. One of them would be, well, I don't do that. But in a be here now phenomenon, it's in the moment of now. It's who are you in the moment of now. Can you imagine how confusing that is going to be? We have identity shifting out of its cultural norm, and we have time shifting out of a sense of permanency in our way, in our methods, in what we hold to be real, in how we think life goes, and who we've assessed ourselves to be, our description of ourselves. And by the way, our description of ourselves is based on cultural history. It's not based on a moment of now. We have no idea. Hold on, checking. We have no idea in this moment of now, in relationship to events in that moment, who will be until we get there. So it's clarity of the moment. It's definitely being able to explain yourself as best you can and be willing to be a little egg on the face about it, and practice, or just do what a lot of people are doing. They're just shut up. They just keep their mouths closed. And it's like a identity ping pong ball. It bounces on the left, it bounces on the right, it doesn't know where to land, it doesn't know where it is. I know you think your identity is yourself, but your identity is not yourself. Your identity is your cultural construct that allows you to feel like you belong to the world around you. I'm saying it's being jarred out of its place. So let's see, we have two things. One is, in the moment, who are you? And in the moment, and can you survive being personally offended because you have an assumption of what another person is saying or what another person is thinking, or you think they have assumptions about what you're saying or what you're thinking? See how well you do. I think we should make a list. If Jackie watches this, I'm going to ask her to make a list, a checklist. So every day we can go, oh, no, 1 through 10, 1 through 5. It's too hard to do 1 through 10. 1 through 5, how often was I personally offended today? 5. Just to get the mind able to pay attention. And then the second thing is, we really are in be here now. I mean, I ask you sincerely, do you really think you know the future? Do you really think you can count on what tomorrow will bring? And do you remember last year when it was different? When we felt a little odd and a little out of place, but we still had a sense of where we put our feet? Come on. We're in no man's land. And when you're in no man's land and new realities are forming, you only have the moment of now. Who are you in the moment of now? And there will be a stress factor. And you will probably want to sleep a lot. And you will be confused. And you're okay. In fact, you're great. In fact, this is great. And we'll do our best. See, it's really interesting. When Lily died, I years and years ago, I knew, because I'm very open about my life, because I knew if I'd stayed transparent and I stayed vulnerable and I didn't try to hide anything from anybody, I'd make it through these moments of transmutation, because I'd be, my dirty laundry be hanging out for all to see. So I didn't have to hide anything from people. I didn't have to face the social norms of, it's not proper to operate that way, or what people might say about me. I kind of killed that sucker over the last 10 years of my life because it was cumbersome. People have lots of opinions about me. Some of them are decent and some of them are indecent. I wish I had more that were indecent, but are, unpleasant. But at least they can have an opinion because I'm being what I am. And people have absolute right to say whatever they think that means, because it's a reflection of their reality. And I'm not in their reality, so they have every right to have the reflection of reality they hold to be true. I just don't have to be at the effect of that. Neither do you, by the way. So it's going to be really tricky. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you. And as And hopefully, because I don't know what I'm doing after December 31st. I don't even know if I'm doing these. I don't know. I don't think you know either. I think we're at the end of an era. I think that this may be the first time. I'm 74. I thought it was 72 the last few months. I think that this is the first time in my 74 years, although I've heard about it, like from my grandmother and a friend of mine years and years ago that was very old. There are these times. One of them was after World War II, where there was a limbo, where nobody quite knew where to put their foot down. They were recovering from shock and loss, and we're in a similar pattern. And then the world began to form alliances and began to form ways to get along together. And we're at the next one. Only this time it's personal. Very, 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 very personal. Very personal. And what I'd like to do is between now and next Friday, oh, by the way, I'm changing back an hour now because I'm in New Mexico and because it's easier for me to start at 8 New Mexico time than 9. And I told you we'd have it at 8 Pacific through November, and we'd start 7 Pacific in December, and that's going to be true. And I'll make sure, Jackie will make sure she stays on top of that. But I'd really like for you to write in the comments any old thing you want to say and about what I've said. Because all our basic structure of interactions are being dismantled. I want to say that again. All our basic structures of interaction are being dismantled by a new structure of reality that is rising, that operates on behalf of life and has us exist as whole. I promise. And those of you who have hung out with me over the past 50 or less years know that I often, when say these things, more often than not, and maybe always, but we don't know that, I'm spot on. So I would love it if you would observe, write in the comments what you've observed, listen to this several times. See, this is my dream. If I could have my dream in 2021, this is how we do it. I would do a conversation like this, and then you all would listen to it, even listen to it a few times, especially when you notice you're disturbed, or when you notice somebody misunderstood you, or you can't get your point across, or what the hell are they doing? And what are you doing? Those kind of things. And then comment on it and write on it, write about it. Because here's the phenomenon of a coherent field. The phenomenon of a coherent field, if everybody starts paying attention to it, it reorients itself into a coherency, an incoherent field. I apologize. So we're right now incoherent. Does that make sense? And everybody around us is, for the most part. And yes, people are still talking philosophy, and people are still reporting on what's happening in the world. But I promise you, we have come down to the meta point of basic, everyday human interaction. That is exciting news. That means the larger systems of consciousness have gotten their job done, and it's spiraling down into the everyday world and into the everyday life. You know, one of the examples of this is when the men landed on the moon. And we were watching on black and white TV. And my grandmother went to her room and ordered us to bring food to her room. She didn't speak to us for a month because she knew men couldn't land on the moon. So we're similar. We have this whole construction of what we know right is, what we know wrong is, what we know good is, what we know bad is. We have evidence and circumstances to back it up. The news is happy to support this train of thought. What if it's completely dismantling? What if you start to notice it does you no good to think something's good or bad or right or wrong, to think you're right and another's wrong? What if it falls short now? What if it all just falls short? And I promise you, the big one will be personally offended. hurt, hypersensitivity. Because everything, when it's transmuting into the next greater whole, it's sort of like all the scabs come off, all the what's the word? Calcification, but there's another word. All the trauma layering starts to come off. And then you just I did slow down time, which I still recommend you purchase and use. I think the most frustrating thing to me is to watch humanity keep operating the way they were operating yesterday as if that's still real. And there's been no education, no coaching, no nothing to show humanity how to stop, change, start. Stop, get aware of what is occurring, and then begin to start figuring out how to be related to what is occurring. And it's all because we live in beliefs, and we live in rigid structures of reality that we think are much more true. The evolutionary capacity of a human mind is sometimes up to 200 years, and at best 50. And I just want to see if we can do it while we're in it, while we're moving with it. Because there's nothing better than awareness. It's just the name of the game. It's just becoming aware is phenomenal. And there are barriers to being personally offended, keeps you from observing. Thinking you're right and others wrong keeps you from observing. There's a song, I'll post it. It's from Porgy and Bess. And it's called It Ain't Necessarily So. It's a good song. It kind of speaks to these times. But the key factor is simply to figure out if you can find a way to discover for yourself in every moment what you clearly are asking for, what you clearly are trying to say, and what you are clearly responding to. So if someone responds back to you in a way that wasn't what you meant, you just say, let me say that again. I'd like us to be clear about what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be right or wrong. I just need to have you be clear about what I'm clear about, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just who I am. That is the new paradigm that is now reformatting. It's reformatting, and in that, it's just going to be a little raw for a while. But it will stop. Just like my grandmother never mentioned that she didn't talk to us for a month, when 10 years later she talked about the men landing on the moon. It became a new norm for her. None of what she had gone through or what she'd put us through was relevant anymore. So I don't know how to do this. I'm going to see if people can ask questions. I've never asked Jackie because I don't quite understand why everything sort of stops on the screen, and then I don't know if people are still commenting. But I'd like just to take a minute, we'll practice, to see if there are any questions or comments about what I've said, including that I don't believe you, Tantra. Things just are the way they are. People are shits. People do misunderstand. And what's this thing called identity anyway? And why is it important to recognize ourselves newly in a softer tonality? You know, that, good, that's what I wanted, thank you. I'm gonna see, okay. Elizabeth, if that's your construct, then practice. Practice it. That you are right on it, Elizabeth. This is what she said about ruled only by peace without statutes, laws, or government is constant in my mind. Then who are you in that? I mean, who are you? How do you practice it? Here's what it's like, Elizabeth, and Liz, I'll call you Liz. But here's what it's like, Elizabeth. What if we're experiencing worlds coming? What if we're, hold on, I gotta get Liz's. What if we're experiencing new worlds coming and we're trying to pattern to worlds coming, not be in reaction to the world we're in? I promise I'm right. I promise I'm accurate. You know, I promise. And then Liz, what you said, we found that we needed to back off and just leave it alone till the trauma memory settled, because we actually have lots of trauma memory. We've been in trauma since the day we're born. I doubt if there's many of us everybody born was born after the World War I and World War II. Everybody on this call, everybody. We have not known, our parents had trauma-based memories. We have not known peace. We have not known that. Yeah, and what everybody's writing is just be there for each other. You know, this sacred space for rest encourages so we can be there for each other. We don't have to see each other. We don't have to practice on each other, but we can be there for each other, because the hardest part of ourselves as human beings is we don't have a strong interactive relationship with trauma. People traumatized, ourselves traumatized. And I do think it's a soft tonality. It's like listening to a different music. It's like listening to a different sound. It's like trying to come in like a whisper. You know, it's very real that, like what Gail's saying, is that there is the death of the passive aggressive victim tyrant attributions. It is dying. It is. We are the fodder. We are the fodder of new realities rising. It's in the constitution of our inner playing field. I wish we had a word in English that fitted. It's thinking of yourself as finding yourself on a landscape that is not yet visible to others. And knowing that the landscape that others are in is prickly to you, hard, shocking, disturbing. But you could only be feeling that if you were somewhere else. Do you see that? If you were experiencing something else, that's what makes the contrast. That's what makes the contrast. And I really want to be at work about this, because I'm really excited. I mean, the dismantling of a trauma-based personality structure that has been ruling the world, I'm pretty kick butt about the possibility that lays beyond that. And so we have to inner listen. We have to almost talk to ourselves, to the other part of ourself that's emerging, to the part of ourself that is, you know, slowly but surely putting its little head out. And there'll be times we'll find ourselves cruel, and it'll shock us, because we are formed, the personality structure we're in was formed by the reality we were born into. Capiche? It was. So then you almost have to say to yourself, okay, wait a minute, who, in this event, this 30-second event I was just in, let me just take time to replay it inside me in a different way. Because the part I don't want you to get caught in is that we can handle it yet, that we can solve it. I'm not in a problem-solving conversation. I'm in, let's get our awareness up. Let's let our emotional field have room in our soul, in our spirit. Let's hold our own tenderness. Let's hold our own vulnerability, hold our own fragileness, hold our own softness. That's what that personality we're born into is good for. It knows how to survive under all conditions. Your structural identity based on the world you were born into. So you just say, I need the part of me that is soft and tender and loving and peaceful and joyful, not the part that got constructed to survive, but I need the part that was constructed to survive, to help me, to hold me while I emerge. I used to do this thing, I've talked about this before. This is way, way, way back. I think Aaron and Liana were just, I'm not sure they were even born yet. I'd make it almost 40 years. But I used to do this Diane 1 because I knew she was being dismantled. I could tell she was, the one I knew myself as, one of the things I've noticed is how painful it got for me this past year when somebody'd say, well, this is what I do and this is what I am. But as a psychic, that wasn't who they were. And what they did was definitely a printout of who they thought they were, but it really wasn't accurate. And it was hard. It was hard to listen because it was the historic personality, chatting with me, but the experience, but this beautiful, wondrous way the person was being, they just didn't have a register for yet. So I think we have to become internally related to ourselves as what Elizabeth spoke about, as if peacefulness is key for you, because we're moving, when reality changes, when it shifts, when it starts, the structure of reality starts to alter, it goes to the etheric realm to pick up information, not to the mental realm and not to the circumstantial world. I'm going to say that again. If somebody wants to write it out. When realities, the matrices, the structure of reality is changing, what it draws from is the ethers. It draws from the ethers of the emotions, of the feelings, of the senses, of the sensations. It draws from sentient intelligence. It stops being able to draw from circumstantial reality. It stops being able to draw from even personal rigidness, identity rigidness. It draws from something that's not yet formed, not yet viable, not yet real in the physical, social, interactive world. But it always starts like that. If I had time, which I don't today, and may never take the time, if you could track back to the Vietnam War, if you could track it back, and probably somebody's done this somewhere. If you find it, please let me know. And track the conversations that started after the 60s. There were conversations before the 60s. These conversations did not exist before the 60s. New Age. It didn't exist before the 60s. So now we're starting, I was one of the ones in the beginning. I'm one of the Gene Houstons and the beginners. One of the people that started the conversation way, way back when we were oddballs. We're now the norm. So I love what you're saying, because what if we just concentrate the emergence? What is emerging? What kind of sensations? What kind of in the non-language base? Because all the words we use, that's why we do template 3 and 4, is to regenerate the language so it's resonant with creation. Because most of the language base we're in is rigid, is unyielding. It has sharp and pointed perceptions. It's based in an either or, right, wrong mentality. So it's going to take the resonance, it's going to take the softness of the voice, the gentleness of the words, the simplicity of conversation. That's my guess. That's my guess. I love what Gail said, because that's a perfect example. But I want us to generate it. Generate. Like kids in a new store. In a store we don't know, on a landscape we're not unfamiliar. It's a gentle time. And here's here's the last piece of this conversation. We can trust consciousness. We can trust what's rising. We can trust it's the bad thing that has been so dominant. We can't even feel, most of humanity can't even feel something called God anymore. Most can't. Because it's made the fault and blame of all reality was on human beings. How stupid. We're not even as old as the youngest dinosaur. So we have a generating, organizing design, a consciousness, an awareness already built in. And if we become curious, not on our case, if we become gentle with ourselves, and I don't know about gentle with the world around us because it's pretty prickly, and we may just have to keep apologizing, or keep going to take a day out. I think we'll put ourselves on a, what do you call it, timeout from the world periodically so that we can recover ourselves as if that self is being recovered for the first time. And I want to personally share 3 things. One is, this really is the perfect house for me. I'm really rather startled, but I honestly can't feel it. I'm still very much deadened by the loss of Lily. And so my emotional registers that I remember with her aren't back, for sure. And then this precious little dog, who has multiple names, I think he just responds to just you being interested in him, basically. He does the one thing that was so, I haven't been able to sleep, I haven't been rested since July 31st, and he sleeps with me, the same way Lily did. And an added one. This morning, I woke up at 5 with his head on my face, on the side of my head. But his gentle breathing, his soft, gentle breathing, I don't think I've ever experienced something therapeutic. I think that terminology is confusing to me, and I've never had an experience that matched what I now know therapeutic is, because it was so therapeutically soothing. I could feel my nerves stop unjangling. I could feel the pleasure of that soft breathing. And that's the part, I am that prayer. I am that prayer for all of us, that what our systems need, we get. That's my prayer. That whatever finds us to calm us, whatever finds us to make us feel safe, whatever finds us that makes us feel like we can relax in the midst of chaos or incredibility or just weariness, that it finds us. And it's amazing, this little puppy, 5 months old, same age, I got Lily. And definitely my daughter's dog. He sat at my door and whined because his girl wasn't around. And but my therapy, what's the miracle of life that my dog very possibly generated another dog that would take care of the pieces that I really still needed and still let me be free, because Liana is in charge of him, not me. I'm just his bed at night because she doesn't sleep well with someone beside her. So that's one thing I want to say. And then the last thing I want to say is be new again. I'm having to be new. And be okay about not knowing what you're doing next, or even what you're supposed to do. And be okay about if you just feel a little dulled down. Something's rising, something's coming, I promise you. And we probably won't do it well, but that won't change it coming. We just won't do it well because we don't know how. And slowly but surely experience will guide us, and interactions with those we love will guide us. Caring about humanity and caring about the type of worlds that we treasure will guide us. We'll be guided by our internal love of life, our internal desire for a beautiful world, or what I call the return to paradise. But I promise you, I've been through this a million times, particularly with myself. When philosophy starts to shift, when points of view start to shift and they begin to become sensory and sensitive and sentient, it's a different way of dealing with life. Our mental mind has been rigidly our concepts, rigidly our beliefs, rigidly our doctrine, our dogma. And our hearts have been scared to open because there's been nothing to be open for, only fight for what would have our hearts open. Our spirit's not been free because we were born into realities where the spirit couldn't be free. And now our spirit and our heart is starting, and our emotions are starting to free themselves. And they would not be doing that if there wasn't a new future rising, if there wasn't a new reality rising. Our bodies are impeccable. They have the ability to respond in ways that our mental mind can never perceive and our personalities are not structured for. Let's just give it a chance. Let's just give the part of ourselves a chance that never had space to be here. And let it do it ever how it needs to do it. And let our old structure of persona die if it needs to. Being born again was a real gift that Jesus Christ gave us. He gave us that alchemy. He said we could do this. He said that. And he also said we didn't have to suffer to do it, but we can be confused. We can be sensitive. And don't confuse confusion and sensitivity with suffering. We're at the border and we're crossing over. That's all. And it'll be delicate, but it won't be, it isn't delicate like at risk. It's delicate because we have had a long time. It's been a long time since humanity could be the fragile, sweet, precious, innocent wonder of creation that it was designed to be. And then I'm even examining days. I'm definitely have already given up Thanksgiving and its meaning. It's my thankful day, not my Thanksgiving day. And I need to resurrect it properly so it doesn't hold a trauma in place. And I had this thought, and anybody interested, I am seriously excited about this. I woke up this morning, so I live surrounded by Pueblo tribes. That's what's so beautiful about New Mexico. So Albuquerque is literally surrounded by Pueblos, literally. Out 40, up 25, everywhere, Pueblos, probably a lot of them. So I decided next Thankful Day, that a lot of people still hold to be Thanksgiving in the other world, I want to do a food gathering project for all the Pueblo Indian tribes around me, which will be down south, because 40 divides New Mexico in half and divides east and west in New Mexico. It's kind of interesting to be, I just realized I'm in the meta point of New Mexico in Albuquerque. How interesting. But I want to do that. So I'm not asking you to do it. I just am excited that we could really generate a Thanksgiving dinner for the Indians. We really could do that. We really could resurrect that atrocity and make it real. Make it real in a way that it could never be before. That's my idea. But I also think we might find other ideas like that, days that have been used for greed, used for purchase, and see how we can make them into something safe and sacred. How's that sound? And I'm not asking you to do it. I don't want us to think about doing anything. I just want us to have imaginations and things that feel good, and don't plop us right into having to do them. Oh my God. We may not do them, but it's still a beautiful thinking. And you still have the capacity for beautiful thought. And it might even be fun if we took it on, some of us, because everybody in the United States of America, there is a tribe near you. Lakotas in Missouri, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota. That's Lakotas are one of the biggest tribes there. It's possible to have fun and to be the reality we love. And it all starts in our imagination. And as one world disintegrates and another world rises, we'll see if we even have to do it. Maybe something even more better and more beautiful has occurred that we couldn't imagine. I am thankful for you. I came here for you. I didn't really come here for myself. I've had a confusing time trying to be a personal self. And now that I have this home in New Mexico, it is truly my home. I'm going to practice being a personal self now. And that'll be very new for me. It's true of all people that are heavily mission-based, that it is a transition we have to make if we so choose. And I'm going to try it. Many of you are new. Many of you are old friends, but we're all humans. And I think we're precious. And I think every bit of work that every one of you ever did, and anyone that listens to this after this is finished, is completely the contributor of the possibility before us. Don't forget that. If you hadn't been who you'd been being, we wouldn't have the opportunity that we have now. And we have words that work different for each one of us. We have points of view that will jar each other. But let's just take it on and see what happens. And why not? It's up. I have a preference to actually be with things that are up. Namaste, everybody. Namaste. I will read every comment that's written. I think it's important to base the next call, which will be an hour earlier on today's call, so we have living experience amongst ourselves that we can grow with each other on. We can grow together. We can learn together. We can discover together. How much fun is that? And now I am truly going. That's my backyard, my trees. Love you lots.